Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us in today's MCD Live. Thank you, Kamalji. Good to see you here, and awaiting all other participants to join us. So, as you all know, that today's session is about understanding mind, emotions, and yoga, and the role that yoga plays. Before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm Shabana Safdari. I have 11 years of teaching yoga as a therapist, and I'm also a sound healer working on an online platform as well as conducting events on sites with corporates, yoga retreats and all. And I'm quite interested always in learning the science behind the yogic practices. And today, in today's session, I'm going to share the science behind the different yogic practices and how this science is related and how it can help us to understand our mind and emotions better. So I would like to start first with mind and brain, understanding that most of the people, what happens is they think that mind and brain are the same thing. But when we talk about brain, it is an organ in our body, but mind is not an organ, but it is something which we cannot see with our eyes. But we do know that it is existing. So mind, we can say that it is a conglomeration of thoughts. And where it is located, we do not know. But it is there because through the mind, our brain is controlled. And through the brain, our body is controlled. So most of the times people think that brain controls the body, but actually it is the mind which controls the brain, and through the brain our body is controlled. So yoga plays a very important role in controlling the mind and removing the fluctuations in the mind. So yoga ha chitta vritti nirodha. So whatever fluctuations which goes on in our mind, yoga plays a very important role to remove these fluctuations. So now let's understand further. I'll be sharing one PPT with you all for better understanding this concept. Okay. So let's understand how stress plays a role. So when we talk about mental health, first let me clarify that when we are talking about mental health, we are talking about just like our physical health, mental health also plays a very important role, and we are not talking about mental disorders, but we are talking about mental health which covers every one of us. It is not necessary that if somebody is having a mental disorder, then only this session applies to them or the yogic practices applies to them. But for all of us, it's very important to take care of our mental health in day-to-day life. And stress plays a very important role in all the mental health issues, because first it starts with playing a role in disrupting our mental health, which later on leads to mental health disorders. So all the psychological disorders, when we talk about like PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, they all have one thing in common, and that is stress, which plays an important role as a common risk factor. And all yoga components, the different practices of yoga that works effectively in reducing our stress levels and helping in elevating our mental and psychological problems. So let's understand the mechanism that works. So a lot of research has been done, and it shows that there are two approaches to different components of yoga. So when we talk about what are the components of yoga, we are talking about asanas, meditation, pranayama. We are talking about chanting, mantras, and relaxation techniques. These are all different components of yoga. And there are two approaches to it. One is top-down approach, which is neurocognitive approach. so which helps us to increase our emotional regulation, and subsequently it influences our brain and nervous system activities. So when we talk about neurocognitive, it helps to control our emotions. So say for example, when you are practicing a asana, you are focusing on your breath and you are holding the asana, and that helps you to gain control over your emotions to a certain extent. And this impacts and influences the functioning of your brain and your nervous system. Or say for example, if I am angry and I am practicing pranayama, so what I am doing is I am observing my breath, and by just focusing on my breath, my brain and nervous system activities starts to relax. So the mind which was very angry and the emotions which were there of anger starts changing, and you start becoming more relaxed. And with emotional regulation, it subsequently also influences all the different organs in your body, your heart, your lungs, your liver, and all the systems in our body, our immune system, our digestive system. And it also helps to reduce our blood pressure, to have a better control on our sugar levels, blood sugar, and it improves our digestive functions. Because whenever a person is stressed, the first system in our body which shows imbalance is our digestive system. So you can notice next time when you are under a lot of stress, observe how your digestion behaves, how's your stomach taking it, and what are the changes that you can feel. Then comes the neurophysiological approach. This is an approach, in this yoga practices helps us to increase the vagal tone. So there is a vagus nerve which is a very important nerve in our body, and this nerve is connected with our parasympathetic nervous system, which is connected with our rest, sleep, digestion. And on the other side is our sympathetic nervous system, which takes care of our fight and flight, and it keeps us active. So when we do a neurophysiological approach, yoga practices helps us to activate relaxation, and it deactivates the stress system which is there in our body. And here an important part in the stress system is played by HPA, which is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which helps us by controlling the stress hormones released in our body. So cortisol is a stress hormone which is released in our body, and yoga helps us to reduce the cortisol levels. So even if the first thing in the morning when you wake up, the first 10 minutes, if you do just slow breathing or abdominal breathing, even if you are still lying in your bed, that will help you to decrease your cortisol levels by 30%. And as a result, you will feel less stressful in the rest of your day. Now, all yoga practices works on influencing our mind and our body. And that is why yoga is very effective, because it works on two ways, both on the mind as well as on our body. Now let's understand how the asana plays the role. So these are some of the mental disorders. Let's not focus on this. And today's session we will be focusing more on how yoga helps. So here, as sage Vasistha has said, Manaha Prasaman Upaya Yogaha. To please our mind, the solution is yoga. So let's understand further about the asanas. So how asanas plays an important role is, say for example, if a person is depressed, and because of depression, their mood will be affected, they will have digestive disorders, they will have sleep disorders, or if a person is having a lot of anxiety, in that case, their breathing patterns will be affected. And different body systems loses its harmony and balance because of the stress. And asanas helps us to restore this balance in our body as well as our mind. Say, what do we do in asanas? We twist our body, we bend our body, we do balancing poses in asanas. And these are all helping us to get back to our normal muscle tone, to restore it. Because you must have noticed when you're tense or you're in a fearful situation, it affects your abdomen. All your abdomen muscles becomes tight, all the muscles are tight. Now when we do all these stretching in yoga, in asanas, it helps to restore that tightness which has happened in the abdominal organs and the muscles, and it brings that balance back. Second way is our breathing pattern changes. So when you are stressed, you may notice that your breathing will be very shallow, or you will be breathing very fast. And there will be less effect of abdominal breathing, because you will be breathing mostly through your chest only and not through the abdomen. But when we are holding the asana and we are just focusing on our breath while holding, it helps to slow down our breathing pattern, the breathing rate, the heart rate, and it induces relaxation in the mind. Also, it works on creating body awareness. There is a controlled movement in the body, as well as there is breath awareness. So 3 things are achieved when you are practicing an asana. And this helps us to regulate our brain and our nervous system. And by regulating these, we are bringing back a balance in our body, and we are also activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And when our brain reduces the thoughts and the emotions, when we have control of our brain, it reduces the thoughts and the emotions, and we have a more balanced state of our mind. Also, holding the asanas for a short duration may induce some kind of tension, but that is very small duration, and it is good to have that kind of eustress in your body. And then it works on our nerve impulses, nerve reflexes and all, and neuromuscular coordination is achieved. That is, our brain and the rest of the body, the signals which I've sent improves, your balance improves, your focus improves, your concentration in your work improves. So this is all achieved, and when there is concentration, there are no chances of stress, because stress happens when we are not concentrating on something, but our mind is lost in thoughts, and we achieve a very desirable state when we are completely relaxed. At the same time, we are focused and we are able to concentrate better. Also, along with the asanas, another important thing that is release of neurotransmitters. So these are basically brain chemicals which are released while practicing asanas. So you must have heard of happy hormones or release of happy chemicals like oxytocin, dopamine. These are the neurotransmitters which are released while practicing asanas, and after a yoga session, you will notice that you are feeling much happier. Though nothing has changed, but there will be a feeling of happiness within, and that is exactly because of the release of these chemicals in your brain. Also, other neurotransmitters like endorphins, which are the natural painkillers of our body. So many times people have joint pains or back pain, and once they practice yoga, they feel a lot of relief after the session. And the reason behind this relief is also not only of stretching the joints and the muscles, but because there is a neurotransmitter like endorphin, which is taking care of the pain in our body, and our well-being is released. It also releases serotonin, which is another neurotransmitter, and this is the one which takes care of our mood. So normally people who have depression issues, in them the serotonin levels are very low. So yoga helps us, and by practicing asana, it also releases the serotonin neurotransmitter in our body, and it also releases GABA, which is another neurotransmitter which takes care of our anxiety. So when the anxiety is less, that is because your GABA levels are high in the body. So overall, practicing asanas is very, very effective practice, which works not only on your physical body, because many times people think that doing asana is just like doing one more physical activity like aerobics or cardio practices. But yogic asanas are way, way beyond just physical benefits to the body. It also works on your mind and your emotions. Now let's come to the next component of yoga, which is pranayama. So when we practice pranayama, there is expansion of our lungs which happens, and as a result we are taking in more air in our lungs. Normally what happens is, though our lungs has a capacity of almost 6 liters of air, but we don't breathe that much. We have a very shallow breathing, and as a result, because of shallow breathing, we only take 1/10 capacity of our lungs, that is around 600 to 700 cc. So you can imagine how much we deprive our cells of the oxygen which it can get by controlled breathing and slow breathing. So what happens is, when we are stressed, we do fast shallow breathing through the chest, and as a result we get less air and less oxygen in our body. And in pranayama, we are not only working on reducing the number of breaths, but we also inhale more efficiently, and this stops the unhealthy breathing pattern which we have created over years because of living in constant stress all the time. So pranayama helps us to start gaining control, because what happens is, there are two ways of breathing. One is by not paying attention, but the breathing is happening, and this is controlled by the respiratory center in your brain stem. And this controls the speed of our breathing, the respiration, the frequency of our breathing, everything. But when we start doing pranayama and we start controlling our breath, we move on from the brain stem to the more developed part of our brain, that is the cortex. And this cortex takes control of our thinking, and it controls the thoughts in the mind. So we start gaining more and more control on our breathing as well as our thinking. And it helps to reduce the thoughts and emotions, and as a result we are able to control our mind, and we are able to reduce the anxiety and the depression in our mind, in our body. And there are different kinds of breathing practices. I'll be sharing a list of the few of them and the rounds that you can practice. But by doing these different practices, it also helps us to regulate our blood pressure and blood sugar. Whenever your blood sugar levels are high, it leads to a lot of stress and fatigue in the body. Whenever blood pressure is high, that is why it's called hypertension. Means there is more tension in the mind, and because there is more tension, it shows in our physical body as high blood pressure. And by practicing pranayama, we are also stimulating the vagus nerve, and this controls our parasympathetic nervous system. So our rest, digestion, our sleep, everything starts becoming much better. And as I mentioned about the neurotransmitters for the asanas, same way, the same neurotransmitters are secreted in our system when we do pranayama practices. So even if somebody wants to do only pranayama practices and not the asana, then also they can derive a lot of benefits of yoga, and especially these brain chemicals, which are very, very important, because as I mentioned at the beginning, how the mind controls the brain and then the brain controls the body. So these neurotransmitters are very important in controlling our physical body to achieve optimal health. Now let's move on to the next component, that is about relaxation. So we do relaxation practices. Mainly one is Shavasana, which is lying down in a corpus pose, and another one is Yoga Nidra. In Savasana, we try to relax the whole body, because what happens is when we are holding our legs together or we are having any fear, we are tightening our whole muscles. Even in Shavasana, why it's important to spread the legs and lie down is because if you keep your legs together, you're still holding the tension in your hip joints, and we do not want to hold any tension anywhere. And that's the reason we widen our legs, we widen our arms, we just turn our head to any of the sides which feels comfortable, and we just try to relax the whole body. And by practicing Yoga Nidra, it's a very beautiful combination of Shavasana along with meditation, because we do a lot of visualization in Yoga Nidra, but we are lying in the same position of Shavasana. And this is very effective to gain relaxation in the body. And when there is relaxation in the body, it also leads to the relaxation in the mind, and we are much more focused. Now let's come to the next component of yoga, which is meditation. So meditation is calming the mind, and this is through having a control over mind by focusing on one point. Now this can be anything. It can be either focusing on an image of Om, or by just focusing at any one point in front of you on the wall or anywhere. You can even focus on a tree with your open eyes, or with your closed eyes you focus, do mindfulness, like focusing on the sounds that you can hear around you, or just focusing on the tip of your nose and observing your breath. So these are all different ways of doing meditation, and these are really helpful in changing the mind, because it changes the neural pathways in your brain, and the neural activities are changed, which leads to neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is changing the way our brain is formatted, and by changing these, it results in an improved functioning of our brain as well as our central nervous system, and we gain more emotional regulation. Now the most interesting part here is the attention regulation and the emotional regulation both are controlled by the same parts of our brain. So it works very well when we are doing meditation to have regulation on our attention as well as our emotions, because the major problem that which people faces these days is attention deficit, because there is so much of noise around us because of the notifications on our mobile, because of so many news and everything happening. We are deficit of attention, and emotional regulation is another challenge which people are facing. Most of the time we are reactive. One statement and boom, we just lose our anger and we say such things which we don't even mean, and we regret it later, and we always decide that next time I'm not going to behave like this. But still we don't have that control, and we end up behaving in the same way. That's exactly where meditation or pranayama or practicing asanas, different components of yoga, helps us to gain this emotional regulation. And by practicing meditation, we are also building up a lot of body awareness, and when we do this, it starts helping us to regulate ourselves. So there is self-control on not only in our body but also in our mind. Then let's come to the next component, and that is mantras. So mantras helps us to increase our willpower, control our thoughts and our thought process, and it also strengthens our resolves. So chanting mantras is a very powerful practice, and even 10 minutes daily if you can sit and chant, it will have a very positive impact on your mind and your emotions. Then let's talk about Om chanting. Now there is a lot of research being done on the Om chanting, and it's a very powerful practice, When you practice 20 minutes of Om chanting, let's understand what it does. It will have a direct deactivation of your amygdala. Now, amygdala is a very small part, like an almond shape, in your brain, in your limbic system. And limbic system is the part of the brain which is responsible for making you react all the time. Especially the amygdala is the alarm system. The moment one statement comes from somebody and boom, you are reacting. That is because amygdala is always overactive and you don't get the time to pause, think and then respond. So Om chanting helps to deactivate this amygdala. So if you are looking for emotional regulation, 20 minutes of Om chanting on a daily basis is a very, very powerful practice. And so let me make you understand by giving you one more example of a cobra. When you see a cobra, what will be your first reaction? You will have fear and you will think of ways how to protect myself. Either I kill the cobra or should I run away from here? What should I do? And that is when the amygdala is already very active. And overactivation of amygdala leads to a lot of stress. Also, by practicing Om chanting, we are deactivating our hippocampus. And hippocampus is the part of our brain which takes care of our emotions, our intuition, and all. So we are also deactivating that so that we have better control on our emotions. And we have more empathy towards other. Also, there is something like theta rhythm connected with it. So these are the brain waves. And when you are chanting Om, you reach into the theta brain wave. When you are in the theta brain wave, you are in a state of complete relaxation. And when you are relaxed, it helps to improve your learning, your memory, your focus, your intuition. And it will have a lot of positive effects on your brain. So that's why Om chanting is a very, very powerful practice. And so these are the different components. And apart from that, if you are looking for some physical practices in yoga, then dynamic practices helps a person, especially with depression and all, a lot to practice dynamic practices. So here I have shared a list of few practices like doing jogging, doing jumping, practicing slow Surya Namaskar if a person is having a lot of anxiety. Also, Surya Namaskar helps, as I mentioned about serotonin earlier, because when the sun is rising and you're facing the sun and practicing Surya Namaskar, the sun rays falls into your retina and that releases serotonin in your body. So your mood gets enhanced, you feel better, but at the same time, it will also help at the end of the day to release melatonin, which is very important to sleep well, to have a deep sleep. That's why people who do not expose themselves to sunlight in the morning have a lot of issues with sleeping. And it's important to practice Surya Namaskar facing the sun so that you get all the benefits during the day as well as in the night. Then you can practice some knee stretches, forward and backward bending, and even just relax free walking. Go out in nature, walk, and just look around at the greenery around you. Hear the sounds of the birds. Just listening to all this, seeing all this will have a big impact on your emotions. So first thing in the morning, instead of checking your phone and the emails and all that, I would suggest go out in nature, take a walk. If you're not doing the asanas, just go, breathe, just feel that air, try to feel the touch of the air in your nostrils, just smell it, how it smells. You will notice that the same smell or the fragrance which is there in the early morning in the fresh air is never there in the rest of the day. So try to just be aware. These are simple mindfulness practices which you can always do for yourself. And yeah, so these are the dynamic practices. There are some asanas, and also one another practice which can be very helpful is, like, even without a teacher, which you can always do, is Trataka. So kriyas are basically cleansing techniques, and Trataka is a practice in which you're just gazing at the flame of the candle. So this is a practice which is best done in evening when it is dark. You close all your windows, curtains and everything, just light a candle and keep focusing on the flame of the candle, at the tip of the flame. And this will have a very powerful impact on your mind and your emotions. It will just quieten your mind completely. So just like doing a meditation where you're keeping your eyes closed and you're focusing, but many times people are not able to do it because they feel my mind is like a monkey and I get a lot of thoughts, I can't meditate, and they just give up. So there is an option that you can keep your eyes open and you focus on the candle flame. On a full moon night, you can focus on the full moon. You can do the Trataka that way also, or you can even do an early morning if you are able to see the sunrise. When the sun shine is not very sharp, you can still focus on the rising sun, and that is also one way of doing Trataka practices to quieten the mind and gain control. As I have shared over here, Nadi Suddhi is again a very powerful practice because it works on balancing the right and the left hemisphere of our brain, and both will function equally so that you can function much better. Logical mind as well as your creative mind, both the sides of your brain will be active, and it plays a very important role in reducing your blood sugar, blood pressure, and reducing your stress levels. So Nadi Suddhi is also called Anulom Vilom, or alternate nostril breathing. And then we have Bhramari Pranayam, which is humming bee sound. That also creates vibrations in your brain, and that is again a very powerful practice to induce complete relaxation. So by the end you finish your humming bee, you will just feel that the mind is quietened. The thoughts which were racing in your mind all have become silent, and you will feel so much of calmness within. And it's a very simple practice. And Om chanting, I have shared the benefits. Cooling pranayama, these are the pranayamas which we practice breathing in through the mouth and exhaling through the nose, and these help us to lower our blood pressure, as well as there is a feeling of freshness in our mouth. So yeah, that's it. So when our brain is in peace, relaxed and focused state, there is no chance that we will have mental health issues like depression, anxiety, or sleep disorders. So that's why all the different components of yoga plays a very important role in reducing the stress levels, and as a result, when stress levels are reduced, your mental health is very well been taken care of, and you feel calm, relaxed and peaceful. So I'm open to any questions. If you have, please feel free. I'm there to answer them, or you can even share your feedback if you feel like.
Yeah, I have a question. If for 6 months, if somebody does month jap, what are some of the benefits that they are going to be experiencing, and how much of nam jap or mantra jap is required every day?
So I would say mantra jap is a very powerful practice, and you can start as little as like say 5 minutes if you are a very busy person. But over a period of time, you can definitely keep increasing the minutes, because you will only start noticing the changes in your emotions and your mind and control over your emotions. So as a result, you will increase to 10 minutes, then 20 minutes. 20 minutes is a very ideal time. If you have time, you can definitely do twice in a day also, once in the morning and once in the night, so that many people face the issue of sleeping and not being able to sleep. So then what happens when they wake up in the morning, though they have slept for 8 hours, they feel very tired because the mind has not rested. It was only the body which was resting. And when we do chanting even before sleeping, even if it's 10 minutes, it will play a very positive role in calming down the thoughts racing in the mind, and you will have a very sound deep sleep, because sleep is very important for the repair. So coming back to your question, Parth, about the mantra chanting, continuous practice shows very positive effects, and when you continuously keep doing it for 6 months, you will notice that how much change you will feel in the emotions and regulation, reduction in your anger, responding to people, not reacting, and being able to handle any stressful situation with more control over yourself. Because see, many times two people face the same situation in life, but how they handle it is very different, because the same situation is same, but their control over their emotions is different. So that's why one person is able to handle it very well, but the other person is not able to handle, and that's why they might burst out in anger, they might go into depression, or they might react with anxiety or something like that. So that's why mantra chanting will strengthen your willpower, and it will help you to calm your mind and regulate your emotions. I hope that answers your question well, Parth.
Yes, thank you.
Welcome, my pleasure. Any other questions or anything else, or any other topics if you would like me to talk about next time on MCD Live, please do let me know. I'll be delighted to share about it. And if you're not joining these MCD Live sessions, if you're new today, then please do join. They are very effective sessions available every evening at 5 p.m. specifically to gain control over our mind, emotions, and take care of our mental health, so that before any mental disorders arises, we are able to take care of our mental health with positivity in our mind. So that brings us to the end of today's session, and thank you all for joining in, and good day everyone. Thank you.